Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of Pete's CD Vinyl World. Today I wanted to do another episode of Give Another Spin. So, in case you haven't seen any of my past videos, Give It Another Spin is a series of videos I'm making about albums maybe that are forgotten about. Usually they're later period albums from artists. Tends to be that way when we have our favorite artists and they've been around for 20, 30 years and they put out a new album. We might listen to it for a while and then just forget about it. Usually very few of those albums or songs become classics. But I wanted to go back today and revisit Metallica Death Magnetic. So this was the follow-up to the disastrous Saint Anger album, which most fans consider pretty much their worst album if you're not counting the Lulu album with Lou Reed. This was sort of a blatant attempt to get back to their original Kill 'Em All, Ride the Lightning sound, I would say. Released in 2008, so I believe it's about 8 years or so after Saint Anger, maybe. I'll have to check the timeline there. Produced by Rick Rubin. So the album has 10 songs. The first 3 songs, That Was Just Your Life, The End of the Line, Broken Beat, and Scarred, are all pretty good. Nothing mind-blowing. They're definitely in the older style as far as riffs. All of the songs are long on this album. They're all between 7 and 9 minutes, with the exception of My Apocalypse, which is 5 minutes. The next 4 songs, The Day That Never Comes, All Nightmare Long, Cyanide, Unforgiven 3, to me are just okay. In fact, Unforgiven 3, I am not crazy about at all. I would definitely say it's the worst song on the album. It just never really goes anywhere. In fact, I don't even hear any really connection to Unforgiven 1 or 2. Then, after you've got to that middle 4 song, just mediocre songs, you get to the last 3, which are actually really good. Judas Kiss, Suicide and Redemption, which is a long instrumental, and My Apocalypse. So overall, to me, the album has 3 pretty good songs, 4 mediocre, okay songs, and the last 3 are excellent. Judas Kiss, Suicide and Redemption, and My Apocalypse. My Apocalypse, to me, is heads and tails above any other song on the album. It's the only other song, to me, that really would fit on Master of Puppets or Ride the Lightning or Injustice for All. It has that fire and aggression. The other songs, even the ones that are good, to me, there's just no hooks. So even to me, when Metallica was at their heaviest and fastest, they always still had hooks. And that's what this album, to me, is lacking. The production overall, this is known as one of the most over-compressed albums of all time. Fans were complaining about this, that it was distorting, even at lower volumes when you listen to this. I remember feeling that way when I first got this album. I listened to this album a lot when I first got it, and then it just sort of drifted out of my rotation, besides My Apocalypse, maybe. But at the time, I thought the same thing. Listening to it now, it's not as overcompressed as I thought. I remember listening to it and hearing the distortion and everything that everyone else is talking about. To my ears now, it doesn't sound that bad. Maybe because so much of the other stuff that's come after it is also overcompressed. But again, probably the last gasp of the CD age where bands were trying to fill albums. This clocks in at 74 minutes and change. Way too long. And the problem is most of the songs are way too long. You probably could have cut at least a minute or 2 off of every song. That problem sort of carries over from Saint Anger, where they're just having riff after riff, and after times change, after a different section of the song. Earlier in their career they had done that, but they all flowed well, and had some sort of purpose. At this point, they're not really doing that. It's almost as if they had to make an album that brought back fans to the original sound. Again, the production, Rick Rubin is sort of known as a very stripped down production style, which is evident here. They get back to James Hetfield recording all of the rhythm guitars. So Kirk Hammett at this point is just recording solos again, as he did through the Black Album. That's, to me, something they probably shouldn't have abandoned was Kirk Hammett playing the rhythm guitars. That's an aspect I actually liked in Load and Reload. You know, bands change over the years, and that's an aspect that they should have kept, in my opinion. It brought a lot more live feel to that period of time. So Load, Reload, and Saint Anger, Kirk recorded rhythm guitars with James. And they do have a lot more live feel. I actually am a fan of Load and Reload. I don't like them as much, obviously, as their earlier albums, but I thought they were good albums for what they were, and probably the perfect albums they could have released at the time. And I thought Kirk was actually playing really well through those albums, solo-wise as well. This album, he, to me, is doing a paint-by-numbers Kirk Hammett instructional video or instructional album. He's just totally uninspired. He's sort of just doing his greatest hits. Couple tapping solos here. Let's use the wah-wah here. And just doesn't have that fire or inventiveness that he had early on. To me, my favorite Kirk album is Kill 'Em All, the way he plays on there. Totally killed on there. And then became more melodic on Ride the Lightning, Master of Puppets, through the Black Album. I also thought he was great on Load and Reload, and especially on those tours, played well too. I don't know what happened, but I think the fact that Saint Anger didn't have any solos on it, he either got insecure or just started phoning it in. But, you know, in the past 20 years, Kirk Hammett just has really just sort of faded away. You know, he was one of the biggest guitar heroes between, say, 1983 to the year 2000 or early 2000s. He was supposed to do a solo album at one point, never did that. So I don't know if he's just sort of here to phone it in. On their latest album, Hardwired to Self-Destruct, I think he's come back a little bit more melodic and stuff. But here he's just sort of, you know, doing the paint-by-numbers thing. Which in general, this album sort of is. A lot of fans loved it because it was a return, at least somewhat of a return to normalcy in Metallica world. I believe the first songs released from this album were Day That Never Comes and Cyanide, which at the time they were okay, but they really are kind of throwbacks to the Load and Reload period. If I was them, I would have released My Apocalypse right from the get-go and hit him over the head. Judas Kiss is another standout track. Suicide and Redemption is another getting back to the old albums where they had sort of like a 10-minute instrumental. But it's just not anywhere in the same ballpark as Orion or To Live Is To Die or Call of Cthulhu. But again, it's probably one of the better songs on the album. So overall, I'm going to give this album, 3 out of 5 stars now that I've been listening to it the past couple days. It's an enjoyable album. If this was a brand new band and, you were like, this is their first album, I would have been like, wow, this is probably one of the best albums of the last 20 years or so. But as a Metallica album, it's just okay. I'd probably rank it definitely above Saint Anger, somewhere in the middle of the 2 Load and Reload albums. But just because there's no hooks, nothing to really grasp onto. And overall, that's my feeling of this album, is just like, eh. So, that's my review of this album. Do I recommend it? If you see it for a cheap price, yeah. I would be curious to hear this on vinyl. Let me know if any of you have this on vinyl, if it still has the over compression that, the CD does. I've read that the record is actually unlistenable. I don't know if there have been different reissues of it or not. I'm assuming not. So just let me know what you think of this. And if you enjoy these videos, please subscribe. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks.